So welcome everyone to our technical talk on Watson Workspace, and we're going to be talking about building AI solutions with Watson Workspace, so we're going to get deep into the code. So this call is being hosted by Ted Brufke. We've also got Van Staub and Andrew Penrose who are going to take us through some of the technical details. We'll go for about 60 minutes, and this call is being recorded. To ask questions during the call, you can utilize the chat feature, the Q&A feature, and our experts will answer the questions, and they will post and reappear in the Q&A section when those questions are answered. So I'm going to turn it right now over to Ted Brufke.
Hey, thanks, John, and really thanks, everybody. I know it's fourth quarter, and your time is precious, but this is a really important opportunity for all of us. As we learn, what Watson Workspace is, for those of you that don't know it, what some of the use cases are that we've built for an existing customer. And Andrew Penrose, who's the chief architect on the project and has been working with that opportunity, is going to take you through some of the things that they're doing. And Van Staub, who's been building a tremendous number of these and runs channel sales for Workspace in North America, is also going to join us. So we're excited about the content. It's definitely targeted towards, technical sales. If you would like more information around actual selling this product, using this product, referring some of your customers to purchase this product, you can reach out to me. This is the first in a series of calls, so that we're going to take this wider and deeper, and we're going to want your feedback as to what more you'd like to hear. The next session will be December 7th. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Van. Again, we will monitor the chat, and if you could put your questions there. We're not going to have a live Q&A at the end, but we do want to hear what what you think, what you'd like more information on. So, Van, over to you.
Great, thanks, Ted, and thanks everybody for joining today's session, which is building AI solutions with Watson Workspace. Great. So I'm Van Staub, as Ted mentioned. I'm a participant in today's webinar, also leading Watson Workspace enablement in the channel. And I've been building Workspace, applications for about a year now. So if you recall, about a year ago at this time, we did our first Watson Workspace development webinar, and quite a lot's changed since then. So I know we probably have a variety of people in the audience, from partners to IBMers to maybe even a client or two. But, we're going to treat this as an introduction. So we'll start slowly. We'll introduce Watson Workspace. We definitely want to hear how actual clients are using it and some, field experience from people like Andrew. And then we want to get you started. So hopefully you will get really excited by what you see. And then we want to get you building creative applications so that you can go out and show them to clients and really get that conversation started around artificial intelligence. So, what I like to start with is the big picture, and that's, the statement that IBM, like so many companies, is really becoming this artificial intelligence and cloud computing company. So we're kind of both this participant in this greater change occurring in information technology, and then we're also more fundamentally an enabler to it. So this change is really the rise of artificial intelligence. People are asking, what is it? Where does it fit in work? How do I use it? And AI has really been in discussion, in varying degrees since the late 1950s. But if you think about it, it really came down to Watson's winning debut on Jeopardy. And I think had a lot to do with kicking off this artificial intelligence land grab that we now see occurring in the technology industry. And since that initial debut of Watson on Jeopardy, the IBM Corporation has created a variety of Watson-branded services. We've begun to really imbue this notion of artificial intelligence into either ready-made applications or services that our developers can use to build their own artificially intelligent applications. And so Watson Workspace is really one of those ready-to-go Watson applications. And so for those that haven't seen Workspace before, this is what it is. You can kind of see it on my screen, and it's fundamentally a conversational application. It's used by people inside the organization. It could be employees. It's there to link those employees, stakeholders, with people outside the organization. So that's partners like you, suppliers, perhaps customers, really it's the core collaboration message that we've had for so long. And a lot of this is being done through text messaging. And it occurs in what we call spaces. So I kind of opted for, the non-traditional presentation here today. Instead of using PowerPoint to sort of show this, we're actually using Watson Workspace. So everything that you see, these text messages, some rich text, you even have emojis and images, all of that is the rich medium that we communicate in. And then we also have the ability to send files, really all the electronic information that we need to conduct our work today. And then it's not limited to, obviously, the one space that I had open. In IBM, we have lots of spaces. We have lots of discussions going on. And I can tell you from personal experience that, even though we've had solutions like ThinkTime, deployed across the enterprise for so long, with the introduction of Workspace, I found myself communicating, collaborating, helping my fellow colleagues a lot more just from this kind of conversational mechanism. So it is more than just text messaging, and we'll be releasing more features that increase the features and functions. Audio video is something that I know the team's working on, but it is more than text messaging, and it's also something that Gartner is calling intelligent workstream collaboration. And part of that intelligence is coming from Watson. So I want to pause for a moment and talk about Watson. I think a lot of people that may have been IBM business partners or certain IBMers know this, but it's good to recap. And that Watson was really was built to do several things that previously were difficult for computers to do, and that was understand and reason given a variety of information. And that information is typically unstructured information. It's textual, it's images, it's that so-called dark data, and Watson's able to provide a score, how confident it is about what it knows about what you said, given kind of its own understanding, giving you a numerical confidence level. And then, the last piece is really it's the learning and trainability. So we want to make Watson and solutions like Workspace smarter. And to do that, we need to be able to train it, and we need, persons like partners or domain experts to help us do that. And I want to be really intentional as we go through this demonstration is, when we say Watson, that often sets a certain bar. It often connotes certain features and functions. And I really want to go through where is the Watson in Workspace and why does that make Watson Workspace so different. So let's start with this. I have a couple of examples, and I've got a little presentation bot running in the background. So if you look at the three messages that I posted, these are all examples of what you might find in everyday business conversation. So I'll take that action item. How can I do box integration with connections? I'm sure lots of IBMers are asking that. And then also, please set up a meeting with Frank. So those are all, statements that we might make in routine, everyday business conversation in Workspace. And what I want to use is the Moments feature to sort of dive a little deeper. So if I click this little purple button up here, I initiate Moments. Moments was designed to sort of chunk the conversation. We have what amounts to a persistent chat conversation. It's going to, from the moment you create the space to the moment you enter it, you can browse all that information. And so Moments helps us chunk that up so that you can get a bird's eye view of it. But what I really like about Moments are these little purple bubbles. So the bubbles are showing where Watson Workspace, or I'll just call it Watson for short, really has some understanding of what you've written. And so in this case, the I'll take that action item signals a commitment. The please set up a meeting with Frank signals an action. And we go even a little further. The developers can exploit this, but in addition to it being action, we'll classify it as a schedule action. Is it a create, an update, delete, reschedule? These are all things that we kind of have trained Watson to do. So the core Workspace team has trained Watson Workspace to identify these facets, apply them to the conversation to the benefit of our developers when they create applications. And the one that's not being shown, and that is also out of the box, is questions. So we can identify questions, because if you think about how often you initiate chat with somebody, usually, it precipitates with a question or some type of information discovery. So these are all really pertinent ways that we want to look at the conversation occurring in business. So, that brings us to, I think, the question, which is what makes a great AI use case? What's a great artificial intelligence use case so that you can start to have that conversation with clients about, well, what would I build for them and why would I do it? These are, I would say, somewhat my personal opinion, but I think influenced a lot by the greater IBM strategy and also in alignment there. Excuse me. And the first one is really, it's providing actionable insight to a user in context. So, there's a reason that users are engaged in these conversational applications because they're non-interruptive, they're very easy, they're sometimes asynchronous, meaning I can write something to Andrew or Ted and I can come back maybe 15 minutes later because I was busy and get a response. So one of the things would be taking the context of what they need and actually fulfilling that through Workspace and using it as a platform. And that's both information, but also, as we'll see, it's applications as well. The other one is leveraging details. I'll call it details. You can think of it as metadata, but leveraging what Watson understands from the conversation. And a lot of that has to do with the natural language processing that's going on in the background. So every message that you put inside of Workspace is actually going through a Watson, let's say, lens. It's looking at that information and adding metadata. And you saw a couple of those. Those were the lenses that the Workspace team built. But there's actually quite a bit more information that's being added that's available to developers to use. And we'll see that. Last, I would say, ingredient to a great AI recipe is going to be incorporating information that's either underused or unknown. And what I mean by that is, let's go back to, the reason we built Watson, which was to analyze and understand unstructured information. And I believe that there's no greater repository of knowledge, information within an organization than the communications amongst its employees. So you think about all those emails that you send, all those instant messaging, all the instant messages, all the things that you share, RFPs, proposals, spreadsheets, documents, that list goes on, electronic data. How much of that do we actually use? I think we use that in a very point-to-point, scenario where you ask somebody for help and they give you back a link. But, I think the greater opportunity is to use that information in a way that, puts it inside of the context and uses it almost automatically. And that helps us, use that knowledge, that repository of information that is either latent or, that users unaware just because there's so many places that we store things today. So in the end, we really built a platform that allows you to continue doing exactly what you do today, and that's collaborate and you share information in a way that feels natural, sort of this text messaging, instant messaging medium. Behind the scenes, Watson's also the participant in the conversation. Watson's monitoring, available to provide insights of what it understands, and really it's all about creating these applications to derive those insights into some type of actionable outcome. And for that, it's Workspace acts as both a platform and a framework to create these applications. So what I'd like to do now is to show off kind of a couple of examples just to get you thinking about, well, what types of apps do we build and what features of Workspace allow us to use and build applications. So let's do that now. So to create an application, what we can do is we can go over to the apps page, and we have a couple of apps that are going to be provided by default. So we have applications from partnerships like IFTTT and WorkAuto. Those are also platforms where, with minimal amount of code, almost no code at times, you can write these applications that participate in a larger ecosystem. So WorkAuto, as it says, has over 100 enterprise applications that you can kind of hook together, a la Lego blocks, to build an application. And then we have our partners building applications as well. So that's PagerDuty. OpenTopic has SIA integrated into Workspace as well as other applications in the collaboration platform. And what I really want to do, this is the introduction, but I really want partners to get their app listed here. I want them to have, we've seen the success of Apple's App Store. We want partners to get excited, build integrations, and have a conduit to make those available to their clients and be able to build a monetization strategy around that as well. So let's add a quick bot, and that's going to be the QA bot. And let's go back over here. And so I have abstracted away and kind of built QA bot to be generic. So you think about that use case that I talked about earlier, which is information discovery. We so often initiate chats with others to basically find out something. And so how do we make that easier? How do we make that more productive or maybe even more engaging? And let me send this little question in here, and if the demo gods are with us, it may take me to add it manually as well. There it is. So if you didn't catch it, there was a purple underscore that was added to this particular question. And so if you're technical, like I am, you kind of get known as the guy with the answers. And so you get lots of emails, you get lots of pings. You probably get, somebody that maybe is non-technical asking something as obscure as, where do I find an internet socket on my computer? Great question, one that I don't know if even I can answer, but the underscore starts to indicate where Watson Workspace, through the help of an app integration, has some applicability. And what we do is we can click that, and what it brings up at the bottom is this dialogue. And this dialogue is what we're calling action fulfillment, and it's a personal, private, one-way interaction with you in Workspace. So rather than me answer that question, if it was posed to me, what that end user could do that's asking the question is they could initiate this action fulfillment. And by doing so, could get back information that might answer this question. And so Watson is picking out this internet socket. That's actually something that it really does understand from it. And then I've just mocked up a card example of how we could provide information. So maybe this is a kind of an FAQ top 10. I might be able to click more to see more information, to provide more behavior via this application, or let's say if it's part of a larger help desk or business process, we can provide a link that puts that user into that right place. So the point is we get kind of this ability to provide assistance in context and rather unobtrusively and, a la self-help. So I mentioned that Watson knew something about this sentence, and it was internet socket. And the question is, well, how did Watson know that? We saw the lenses earlier. How does it know about internet sockets? Well, truth be told, Watson knows quite a bit. And so one of the other bots that I'd like to show you here is one that I have nicknamed Cousteau. And let's add Cousteau. And so Cousteau, named after the underwater explorer, is sort of a cognitive AI exploration bot. So if we say something like, where is a great place to dine in Paris, France, you can see that I'm a little more specific about what Watson understands. And so there's some underscores on Paris, France. There's an underscore on great place. And what we can use Cousteau to do is to kind of dive deeper into what Watson knows. So let's click this. And again, we'll initiate action fulfillment. And then the buttons represent the information that Watson has on file, as it were, about what you just said. So we have entities, the real world things that correlate to what you asked. We have keywords. Those are the things that stand out in this sentence. So Watson doesn't know everything, but it knows enough about language to pick out keywords. Document sentiment, is it positive, negative, neutral, and then, what's the intensity of those areas? Relationships are, what's the structure, the grammar of the sentence and the relationship of words in there? Concepts, what are we talking about? And then the one that I'll show is taxonomy. Where does this sentence question fit into, if we were to kind of put it into the card catalog, so to speak? So let's click taxonomy. And what Watson knows about what you asked, it would classify it as, well, travel, tourist destinations, France. Now, that seems really logical. Food and drink, dining out, makes sense, great place to dine. And then also food and drink, beverages, alcoholic beverages. Maybe, based on people loving wine in France, or maybe Watson knows more about me than I think, but, Watson's pretty much on the money for all of these points. And so when I sit back, Watson's got an understanding of what you've said. It has a classification and how it fits. If you take that and then marry it with a similar, classification that Watson does on your existing data, it could be all the images, it could be your knowledge base, your self-help repositories. It gives us one tool to go beyond just, like a keyword-based search. Now that we understand what you mean, what you want, I think it gives us a way to exploit that knowledge to actually build better, more intelligent, more accurate applications. So let's look at one more in the Q&A space to just drive this home, and that's a bot that you may have seen at Connect called Connections Q&A bot. And let me add it briefly. So let's take Cousteau off. He does get in the way for this one. And then we will add Connections Q&A. Oh, and it has this lovely icon. It looks official. So let's send another question back into the space. IBMer possibly asking, how can I do box integration with Connections? And this chatbot is an example of a lean-in approach. So there is a richness of chatbot development that even I didn't know until I started looking into it. Chatbots can, lean in, meaning they're very proactive in answering the question. They can also lean back, which means that the user has to initiate that interaction. So, this is where partnerships, partners come in to really, think about what is that overall user experience, what is the tone and personality of this application. Designing these applications is much more than, hooking one end of the pipe up to Workspace. We want to create the appropriate user experience given either the users that are using the application or the business that it's in. You can think about, financial institutions is going to be a lot different than just, a millennial startup. How they respond, how they talk amongst themselves. We want applications that feel natural. Okay, so there's one other thing that's going on here, and let me explain Connections Q&A bot a bit more. A lot of people ask me, where's the machine learning in Watson Workspace? You're doing Watson, where's machine learning? And I wouldn't say that there's machine learning going on per se in Workspace out of the box. Where that comes in is as we layer in additional Watson services that do machine learning. And so this is an example of one of those where I've taken a Watson service called Retrieve and Rank. Retrieve and Rank has been loaded with thousands and thousands of forum posts from Connections Cloud, one of our actual Ask the Offering Managers community. And, what's happening is, by that lens that is a question, the app is detecting the question, it's going out to Retrieve and Rank is giving back the most appropriate answer. And that most appropriate answer actually came through cognitive training. I had to sit down and teach that system what were the appropriate answers. And so, this is where, all the things that we think about Watson, the understand, the reason, and the learning, really it does come to surface inside of, Watson Workspace, given not only what's built in, but also the, the greater ecosystem that we have out there. And it's a great example, one that's very real world. There's a Georgia Tech professor that did something similar. We built the exact same thing in Workspace, and it's just a really fun one to show off. All right, and the last one that I'll show, just to kind of round out the feature discussion of what you can use, is a bot that has been around for a little while called To Do Bot. It's been updated recently to work with action fulfillment. But let's go ahead and take a look at good old To Do Bot, and we will add it here, add application, and then let's send something in there. So the proverbial example that I have, we need to set up a meeting with Frank. We see that To Do Bot is adding that UI decoration, meaning I can do something. And so what I can do here is I can initiate this action fulfillment, and I can view that to do. So if I click on view, it's basically asking me, hey, would you like to do this particular action that I picked up? And the action is actually the phrase that Watson picked out. It happens to mirror exactly what I said, but if this is a longer running sentence, Watson's able to kind of chunk out that information, and we'd see a kind of a smaller sample. But in the event that I want to do this, I really need to talk to Frank. Let's add that to my list, and I get this progressive disclosure. So, that dialogue that you see can beget other dialogues, and we can have kind of this rich application, if it will, running inside of Workspace. And now I've kind of done this a couple of times, so I'll kind of toggle this, and if over the course of time, I figure out that, this is done, we've had that meeting, I can go and complete it, and then you can certainly write more implementation to, remove it or do something with that. And this gets back to, it's a very general use case, but think about the best-of-breed project management applications out there. It might be Trello, it might be Asana, it might be, something else. We start with the general, but definitely layer in those services. And then one of the other things that we can do is we support something called slash commands. So if I do this slash, and then since I've added to-do-bot, I've got a command available to me. That's the to-dos command. And I can say me, and you kind of saw that earlier. I can see my to-dos. And what I think about is, these are all really interesting in isolation. There's some helpfulness that it does there. But the bigger piece of the pie is actually coordinating a variety of applications and getting them to participate into a larger use case. And one of the areas that, I think we've seen inside of IBM and through discussion is this idea of a resolution room. So people usually come together to resolve something, and if we think about IT and where a lot of this conversational medium started, which was chat operations, if that server crashes, how great would it be to have applications that can provide real-time status, applications that maybe integrate that knowledge base, integrate some correlation between what the logs are saying and what maybe defects we're already aware of, provide that in context, and then, oh, by the way, when we're all done, or as we're working on this, we want to know about those to-dos that are coming up. We want to check them off our list, and then maybe at the end of it, let's make sure that we've got everything done. Let's look at all the to-dos in this space. Looks like they're all done. We can mark this issue as resolved, archive it. So, I think the bigger strategy is not treating each one of these applications as individual, but sort of going back to my Lego block analogy, becoming something bigger that is in support of a customer's problem or use case. And then, if you want to think really big, and I see the IBMers doing it already, and I think it'd be great to bring to our clients, but, we've got a variety of spaces that are going on here. We have the ability to add these applications to them. They're monitoring the conversation. How do we harness all of that collective wisdom, what people are talking about, sentiment, the list goes on, but really, harnessing all of that through these small applications to deliver something that I think is really powerful. And that's what, these applications and Watson and this medium, this platform was really designed to do. So, I think I've kind of said a lot. I'd love to hear from Andrew. Andrew is one of our architects and one of our advocates working with Mears Group. Andrew, why don't you come off mute? I'll pass presenter control over to you, and you can tell us about your experience working with Mears.
Just to introduce myself, my name is Andrew Penrose. I work as part of the development team in Watson Workspace, which we've GA'd only recently. And what we're involved in doing at the moment is we're working on adding new features constantly, as well as working with our business partners and our customers. And one of them customers is the Mears Group. Not to be confused with the North American one. Mears are based in the UK. It's mears.co.uk. They're a £1 billion company. Their area is in the area of housing management and care. So they do a lot of work with the actual government within the UK, as well as dealing with care workers and the medical area around, being able to schedule jobs for not only their housing, but then also be able to schedule care workers for people in need, that kind of thing. Okay. So what we did, we engaged MERS with Workspace in order to discuss with them what the art of the possible was for them. And what we do is we have a workshop, a discovery workshop, where we go through what Van has pretty much gone through in terms of Workspace and its functionality, and then we discuss within the business how Workspace can help to streamline business process and how it can help to get people collaborating that wouldn't normally collaborate, and how they can use it to incorporate cognitive aspects within their data and within their conversations. So from that perspective, we came up with a couple of use cases to work with them. One was called Ask Mearsy, which is kind of a chatbot implementation of an app. The other side of it was working with a business partner, as some of you might know yourselves, called Novilus, based in Israel, and that was to develop a social media tracker. And then the other use case was around their digital champions. Okay, so they've got about 500 digital champions through the organization, and they've got about 300 actual offices located around the UK. So the digital champions are responsible for ensuring that the technology keeps up with the business process and make sure it enables staff within the organizations. So the first use case was around collaboration for digital champions, and really this is quite a key one for them. And I was actually in Vienna with Simon Budworth from MERS at Social Connections, where we did a talk on these use cases and how they were used. And this in particular is important because they wanted to minimize meetings and emails within their digital champions and get them talking in real time. And they're now in a space, and a number of spaces, and they're discussing, different things about the business. So it's all about sharing knowledge and experience. So that was a very simple use case just to get them using Workspace to start off with. But the advantage they get there is they get to see how it's used and how they can then understand how they can bring in the data within the business. The second use case was around a social media tracker. Like I said, this was developed in association with Novilus, and it's still in development. MERS have a customer service team. Like quite a lot of companies, they monitor their social media, so Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and different aspects like that. So they need to monitor these and react to comments, questions from the public, and respond accordingly. So this use case is around actually getting sentiment analysis on their social media content within Workspace, with the view that this would streamline the service team's ability to react quicker. Okay, and then also they've got a back-end system called OneTouch, where they'll be able to push the content through to that system. So as an example of this is an example post into one of their spaces at the moment, and it's analyzing a Facebook post. So down the bottom you see that the sentiment is positive overall. There's further functionality gone into this, whereby the bottom part of this post now has got a link saying create positive comment. And what that does is what Van has actually shown already. It opens up action fulfillment and allows them to push the content into their OneTouch system, which is actually an X-Pages domino app. So the app in Workspace is communicating out to their X-Pages app. Another example here is the analyzing of Twitter posts. In the same instance, there's some visuals here around the black line being neutral, green being positive, red being negative. And the further development here is the integration with OneTouch. So there's links after each of these analyzed tweets where they can push the content out. And this is just the idea that the OneTouch system is based out internally and the content is being pushed out there. And as you can see down the bottom, when you click on one of the sentiment tweets, you get the social media tracker action fulfillment item down the bottom. Okay, like I said, this is still in development, and we're trying to get it deployed in production for MERS at the moment. Another use case that they wanted to address was a chatbot app essentially. The term MERSy is a word that and the logo is something that they use within the organization. They've actually got a very differing range of users. So they've got they've got electricians, plumbers, a lot of tradesmen and women that actually work in the housing area. So they have a lot of questions around job scheduling, around issues that occur. So the purpose of this Ask MERSy bot is really a central location for them to be able to ask and share these questions, okay, with the power of the cognitive analysis in the background. So what we've done is we've worked with we've hooked in a Watson Conversation instance and then linked into their ServiceNow cloud offering, and they've got another product called MCM View, which is their job scheduler. So as an example to this, I like what Van has shown earlier on. The interaction on the left is from a space with MERSy replying, okay? And if you see the fourth response was saying, so you were having password problems, what we're doing in this instance is the piece of JSON text at the top is an example of a keyword analysis that is sent to the app that allows the app to use when it builds a query further on to ServiceNow. Okay, so that's just one of the analysis, other ones being entities, relations, keyword, relations, taxonomy, concepts, etc. So they can be used to actually fulfill queries out to third-party data, and then that data is then pushed back into Workspace, where MERSy has found information around self-service password reset. Okay. So along with this Watson Conversation side of things, on the second item I received, where it says I have received spam email, because the employees are spread over different areas, they've got different ways of saying things. So we've configured this up to have different ways that they can reply to this. And what we've been looking to do is put in a framework whereby questions within a space would automatically be put into the Watson Conversation training. And then the training within Watson Conversation would then learn, and you'd be able to hook that back into the MERSy app within Workspace. To extend that further, you could hook in the likes of a classifier to do more work around being able to know exactly the kind of issues that they're talking about. So basically, the potential here is quite wide as to what you can do. We've got a full range of APIs within Workspace, and everything is exposed within GraphQL or REST APIs. So it's very easy to actually get data into and out of Workspace and pull that cognitive analysis that Van showed earlier on. So just one more example around the job scheduling, which hooks into their MCM view. So they can use natural language, give me the last job, for put an address in. We'll recognize the address and recognize that it's the last job. The same analysis that Dan showed earlier on, and it would then display out that job information from MCM view. So the key part here in a lot of these use cases is that they're able to stay in the one or a couple of workspaces, but within the Workspace product, and be able to get it information and discuss it, collaborate and share within the employees, within MERS, and also the contractors that would be using this. So that's the advantages that they want to be able to leverage from using Workspace. At that, I will pass it back to you, Van.
Great, thanks, Andrew. And we have a bit of interest in the Ask Mirzi application. So if you can, do you know the answer? Did they have an existing chat tool and Workspace replaced it, or is this alongside? And then also, is this deployed or still in proof of concept?
So, so regarding the digital champions, there's 500 of them. They're already provisioned. They were part of our EPP program, our Enterprise Preview program. So they've already federated in their LDAP, and the entire company has got access, but it's been limited to them 500 for the moment. So that's the answer to the POC, or deployed enterprise-wide. So we're working with them to further extend our relationship with them. In terms of the Mirzi app, we are working now on getting the one-touch integration in place, and the hope is that we will get that deployed in for the customer service team to actively use. So that's a few weeks out at the moment, but we're actively working on getting these deployed into production and used within the company.
Very good, very good. So I hope everyone's getting a little excited about what we can do and then what our clients are already doing. Andrew, if you can just pass me control back, just drag that little WebEx bubble over to the VS icon. I'll share my screen again.
So just to add one more thing. Actually, we're working with also working with a major European bank as well around a number of different use cases around how line of business can use this, how, for example, DevOps can use it. So different types of personas have different applications and uses for Workspace.
Yep, and so now we get into the fun part. With I think we have about 15 minutes left, and I'll try and make it brief because I do want to leave some Q&A, but perhaps we can run over. So the next question is, how and where do we get started? Well, we have a couple of ways that you can go and take your idea and then build something to make it real. So the best place to start is over at developer.watsonwork.ibm.com. We actually have some really great documentation, something I haven't been able to say maybe in the past, but the team has done a really excellent job to lay out how all the APIs work. We have working examples. There's screenshots and images, so it's very well laid out. And there's additionally some tooling. So Andrew had mentioned GraphQL, so let me just refresh this here so it works. But as you kind of figure out what it is that you want it to do, you can use the Documentation Explorer over here to kind of understand what are all the things that Workspace can do, and Watson Work Service is the platform. And then you can actually build out the GraphQL in real time, and then you can run and actually get responses back. So this is great for developers that are learning, kind of how the structure of information is done, and then how do I, as a developer, use that to build out, the applications that you saw from Andrew. Now, the other thing that you'll want to take note of is out on GitHub, github.com/WatsonWork is the Watson Workspace's team's official, samples. And so the team is kind of putting out working examples, kind of like the ones that I showed you, in a variety of languages. So here's a GitHub's issues application written in Python. We have a Hello World and Echo bot written in JavaScript, and then also a brewery database application written in Java. So depending on your interest or perhaps your programming language, I think that there is probably a sample for you. And then each one of them contains not only the source code, so great to look through and understand how we wrote these, but also kind of a README to go ahead and get started. So definitely check out the official ones, and then I am going to kind of show you a bit of what I've worked on to make that development process just a little bit easier. And so I have my GitHub. It's also out there on the public GitHub at van-ibm, and I've created two projects that I've really tried to focus on making that very first application development really smooth because the team's done a great job to build out APIs. We have lots of things that you can exploit. Sometimes you need a little help to do that. So there is the Watson Workspace bot project, which is kind of like every good application needs a framework. So that's the intent of the bot project. And then also every application developer can benefit from an SDK. So APIs are great, but really I want to just write a simple function call. And so this is an SDK written in JavaScript for Node.js. So what I'll walk through rather quickly is going to be just how you can get started very, very quickly using the Workspace starter bot. And so you can go over to this project, and we can simply download it to your computer. It's not very big. And then what you can do is we'll go over to my text editor and also the terminal. And what we'll do is we'll change directory to Watson Workspace. And then this is starter master. That's the one that I downloaded. And then to install the dependencies, because this is a Node project, we just run npm install. And then while that's running, which takes about 20 or 30 seconds, let's add the project code. So I downloaded it. The directory is already available. I'll click open. And then now I have all the code that I need to kind of begin my application or chatbot development. And you can see on the right-hand side, I now have everything I need downloaded as well. So the next step is before we actually kind of put our hands on the keyboard and start writing code, we have to tell Watson Workspace and Work Services that we're going to create a bot or an application. And so the way that we do that is, let me get my bearings, and we'll go out to developer.watsonwork.ibm.com. You can click on your apps, and then you can create an app. And so this app is just going to be webinar demo, and let's give it demo 3 just so it stands out. And let's create this application. And why don't we refresh and try this again? There we go. Okay, and so what you'll get back are 2 really important pieces of information. It's the app ID, so you'll want to copy that, and pardon me for shuffling through, but you'll go out to this little .env file and you just paste it in here. And then we'll do the exact same for the app secret. And then we'll save. And now we can actually launch our chatbot. So I can run npm run dev, and you'll see at the bottom of my screen, things are happening. And there's some actually really interesting things happening. So one, we're using NodeMon here. I'll touch on that, but NodeMon makes the process of developing really easy. I don't have to start, stop, recompile. There's none of that in JavaScript. It just kind of works with the help of NodeMon. The other thing is, and I'll be brief, but Watson Workspace sends information to our applications via a webhook. So Watson Workspace needs to know where to send it to, usually as a public URL. Well, since my application is running on my computer, there's no public URL. We use an intermediary called ngrok, and the starter and the bot framework are going to set that up automatically for you. So what we can do is just copy that little URL here. We go back to the bot, back to the application, and then we're going to add an outbound webhook. So this is how we tell Workspace where our application lives. It's at this URL for now. And then what are we interested in? Well, primarily you're likely to use message created, that is any message posted into a space, by users or bots. And then also the message annotation added. That's all the, the AI metadata that we showed with Cousteau and that Andrew had shown with the raw JavaScript in his slide. So let's save this, and you get back one more piece of information you'll need, and that's this right here. So it's the webhook secret. Last part of this dance is to save it here, and then what we need to do is restart the bot so all this takes effect, and the easiest way to do that is just to edit the source code. So if I put a semicolon here and save, what you'll notice is the bot automatically restarts, and that's what makes the kind of the development process so easy, is that every time that I make a change, the bot restarts and I can test those changes immediately. So one last thing is let's enable the webhook. So we're live. You shouldn't get an error because I've try to make this as foolproof as possible. And then let's add the app to a space. So just as I did earlier, let's go back here. We'll go look for webinar demo. There we go. We'll add that. And now we get to code. And we'll kind of do this briefly because I know we don't have a lot of time, but let me run through a bit of this because it makes the development process, I think, a lot easier. So all the stuff that it takes to create a chatbot is just in these lines of code. So the bot framework is a public npm.js package. Just include it. It will create the express server for you. You can change the logging details. It will create the SDK. And then to create a bot, we just do this bot framework.create. And the create's going to read these settings that we stored in .env. You can, optionally pass them, but we basically create a single bot, or you can mount many bots in the bot framework. That helps because you can have one Bluemix application hosting many chatbots, so it cuts down on your overhead. And then the last thing you do is just bot.authenticate, and that gets the bot talking to Watson Work Services. So that's all you need to do to get a bot up and running. And the next thing you ask yourself is, well, I want to do something. I want to make, add some behavior, all these flashy things that Andrew was showing. So the way that that's implemented, and it's kind of convention, is what's called an event emitter pattern. A lot of developers will recognize it as just simple, publish, subscribe, or observer pattern. But what I do is I essentially tell my bot what I'm interested in. And in this case, let's deal with the message created event. And I've got a couple of those that are also, out of the box, like message created or annotation added, but, some helpful ones like, maybe we're interested in the message focus question, because remember we talked about those lenses earlier. So you can listen to just what you're interested in, and then it's just insert your code. So the message created event is, going to be received. We'll get the message, and then why don't we write a really quick echo bot? So what I can do here is come back. We'll do bot.send message. So we're going to send a message into a space. So to do that, we need a space ID. Okay, and then we need to send a message. So an echo bot just kind of sends back what you said, and we can do that very easily with message.content, because that's what we originally received. So let's save that, and then everything looks like it's okay. No errors, and then we can say something like hello world. All right, and so the echo bot basically just simply sent that information back to us. So that's helpful. Not a lot of code to get that running, and if you're doing chatbot development or you've done it in the past, you know that there's a lot of JSON and manipulation of data that actually does, that one simple process requires you to do. This makes it a lot easier. Let's also do something else. Let's look at that annotation. So that purple underline that signals that we can do something. How does that happen? Well, one of the ways that it happens is through Watson Conversation. That is a Bluemix service. We're compatible with it. So if you go out to this Make It Cognitive, you can incorporate Watson Conversation into Workspace really easily. It's a process and I guess a tool that we'll definitely put in another webinar because I think that there's a lot of value there. We just don't have a lot of time in an intro to make it possible. What I can show you is this, and that is we can add those annotations manually. And so if we do bot.add message focus, and then thinking back to what this needs, we need the message, okay, and then we want the text that we want to add that little underline to. So let's just hard code that to be world. We want to provide a lens. We saw action request, we saw commitment in the moment. So hello world lens. And then we need to give it a category. So categories add additional information. It's not what the user sees, but it's what the developer can exploit. So we'll just add the category of flat, which is what the world once was. And then let's add hello-world. This is the identifier that, as a developer, you'll use to, when that user clicks the action fulfillment, you know that hello-world came back and that you know what to do. So this should be all that we need. We'll save that, come back over here, and let's write that text once again. And there we go. So there's our annotation that gets added, inviting the user to kind of initiate action fulfillment. Here we go. There's hello-world. That's the action that we created. And if we click this, you'll actually get a dialogue. So this is action fulfillment. And the reason that works is because if you come down here, we're also listening to the action selected event. I could easily listen to hello-world. And then I build out that dialogue. And that dialogue is typically created with GraphQL. I'll say it's a bit gnarly for people that just get started. So this is a lot, I think, more, I'll say, usable, which is let's create a series of buttons. I've got 2 of them, so UI.button, and I give it a thing that the user sees. The user is going to see submit. We give it an action. Great, got 2 buttons. We're going to create that generic dialogue with the title, with the subtitle, and then my buttons. And then I just use the SDK to send back that into the space as a targeted message. And then what the user sees is essentially right here. So it makes it super easy just to get started. So if you've got ideas and you kind of just want to see them in practice in action as quickly as possible, we've got a lot of samples that work out of the box. We've got some SDK and framework projects that make it a lot easier. We've got people like Andrew and myself willing to help and kind of get that conversation and that prototype going. So, all the ingredients to make a great AI use case, just let us know when and where. And Ted, why don't we stop there and we'll open up for questions. And I'm checking through the Q&A right now, but Ted or Andrew, if you saw something that we can address, let me know. All right, and Peter and I have been chatting over Twitter, but he said he's worked with the SDK. It makes short time of development. So thanks, Pete.
And I do think for those that are on the phone, there is a preview version of the product that you can get your hands on. We're going to have another webinar on December 7th. This will be recorded if you wanted to share it with others of your peers. And what we're really seeing is a lot of interest in the partners to build solutions in the ecosystem, repeatable solutions, and really wrapper industry templates, solving problems that they believe are repeatable, much like we've seen in the past with other IBM products. Domino comes to mind, where we had 3,000 partners building solutions in a huge ecosystem. So glad that you're all here and you're joining the party here, because this is version 1 that came out. We've got another one. We can talk about roadmap on the next call as to what you can expect and what's coming. If you have questions, please reach out to us. We'd love to work with you and your partner managers to accelerate your ability to get products in market. Thank you. And
guys, do you want to try to take a live call?
Yeah, that's fine. We can open it up. John, while you're doing that, there was a question from Jan, which is, what was the developer tools you were using? So I was using Atom, which is the text editor IDE. I was also just kind of using standard terminal on the side with my split screen Mac. And then I use Node.js these days. I was a long-time Java developer, and I've kind of switched religion here, and I've been coding in Node.js for about 2 years now. There is such a rich ecosystem of available packages, HTTP clients, and things that just make the development process a bit easier. So a lot of those tools were kind of community open source contributions from the Node.js community.
Should we wrap it up now, gentlemen?
Yeah, I think thanks to everyone for joining. Again, Andrew, Ted, myself are available for chats with clients, prototyping sessions. We're here when you need us.
And look for an invite for the December 7th call. We'll take it the next level deeper. So, Ted, you want to wrap this up?
Yep, I think we're all set. And again, as we said, we appreciate everybody's time. We know it's end of quarter, but let's roll into 2018 ready.
Sounds good. All right, thank you all for attending. And again, this has been recorded, and we'll put this out on Partner World, and look forward to some great applications from you guys. Thank you.